Hi, and welcome to the Caterpillar Cross Stitch YouTube channel. My name's Ford from Son of a Stitch, and this week I'm going to be teaching you my top tips for dealing with one of the most difficult kinds of floss, satin. Here at Caterpillar Cross Stitch, we are all about cross stitch, and we upload helpful and, on occasion, entertaining videos about it every single week. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any of those future videos. And if you like this video in particular, make sure you give it a like and leave me a comment down below. Likewise, if you have a question you'd like to see me address on the channel or a topic you'd like to see me talk about, leave that in the comments as well, and I'll see what I can do. The satin floss is a really beautiful type of floss, and it can add a really gorgeous luster and sheen to your project. But it is made with a different kind of fiber than the cotton that most embroidery floss is made from. It's made from rayon. And rayon has its own particular set of problems that can make it a little bit more difficult to work with. I'm going to cover some of the most common problems that it creates and the tips that I use to help mitigate those problems and make it easier to work with. But before we get too much further, I do want to remind you to join the Caterpillar Cross Stitch VIP Stitch Club. When you join, you'll get 10% off your first order, you'll get a digital download of our top 10 cross-stitching tips, and you'll get an ebook with 8 free PDF cross-stitch patterns in it. So hit the link down there in the description to get all those great perks. So first I'm going to show you how to identify satin floss. When you're in the store, you're going to notice that it comes in the long plastic tubes like some of the Light Effects floss do, instead of the 2 little paper collars. And then you'll also notice that the color number is preceded by an S. So you're going to have an S and then a number. And that's how you'll know that you're working with a satin floss. And they're usually separate from the other flosses, not mixed in with them. So the first problem is that satin floss, because it's made from rayon, has a tendency to develop static electrical charge, and that will cause it to cling to itself. And that results in a lot of tangling and knots while you're working with the floss. So there are a couple of ways that you can help mitigate that problem. A lot of people use a thread conditioner or something like beeswax. You can also just use a damp sponge and run the floss across the surface of it to get a little bit damp. That'll reduce the static electric charge of it. I have been known in a pinch to just stick it between my lips and run it through my mouth, and that's a sufficient amount of moisture to keep it from clinging. I'm hoping that someday alien archaeologists will find one of my projects and use the residual saliva to clone me. So this seems like a great time to tell you about something exciting coming up. The Caterpillar Stitch Retreat 2024. It's happening in June at a luxury 4-star hotel in the heart of Birmingham, UK that is easily accessible from any form of transit that you might use to get there. It's going to be a great opportunity to spend some time with the Caterpillar crew. Don't worry if you don't have anyone to go with. Most people say that they're going alone. So everyone is there to meet new people and make new friends. So don't let that be the reason that you don't go. Your ticket gets you an exclusive project kit, project bag, and needle minder. There are also VIP tickets available with other great perks, and there is a payment plan available to help you split the payments up to make it a little bit more affordable. There are still some tickets remaining available right now, so act fast. I'll pause myself while you go and get the ticket. You ready? Did you do it? Did you go get the ticket? All right, let's get back to it. The other problem is that satin floss is extremely prone to fraying. It doesn't bind to itself the way cotton does, so as soon as you cut it, it starts unraveling into little loose individual fibers. So working with satin floss is one of the reasons that my floss box, in addition to pieces of floss too short to keep, always contains a bottle of Fray Check. Fray Check is made by Dritz. You can find it at almost any craft or sewing store. Do not put it in your eye. It's very important. It looks like eye drops, but it isn't. And it's very easy to use. So all you want to do is before you cut your floss, wind some out, the amount that you're going to use. And just barely touch the nozzle to the floss. Tiniest little drop will do it. Because all we're trying to do is to keep that from coming unraveled when we cut it. So we'll give that a couple of minutes to dry, and then we'll cut it in the area that we just treated. So that's going to treat both ends, the end that I'm leaving on my bobbin as well as the working end that I just created. And that will keep both of those from coming unraveled. Probably noticed that I cut a somewhat shorter piece of floss than I normally work with there. And that's my next tip, is to use a shorter piece of floss than you normally would. Every time you pass that floss through the fabric, you're putting friction on it. You're putting wear and tear on that floss. And so that's what will cause it to start to fray and look ragged. So using a shorter piece means that it passes through the fabric fewer times and therefore gets less frayed and worn out. And my next tip might seem a little bit counterintuitive, and that's to use a larger needle than you normally would. Part of the purpose of the larger needle is to open up the hole in the fabric so that the floss can go through it easily. If you're getting a significant popping noise every time you pass your needle through the fabric when it gets to the eye, then you're probably using too small of a needle. So use a bigger needle than you normally would when working with satin floss. Now the next problem that I talked about is that satin floss is hard to get good tension on your stitches. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One is that the floss is just very slippery. So when you pull tension on your stitch, some of it just pulls back. It just slides back through the fabric. One thing that you have to get used to is pulling a little bit harder than you normally would. Because normally you do a stitch, you pull it, and you're tightening this stitch. But with satin floss, when you pull on this stitch, you're actually tightening this one. So you pull it a little bit harder so that that tension will transfer through to the last one. The other thing is that satin floss does not stretch the way cotton floss does. So you wind up with inconsistent tension between the working strands that you're working with if you're not working with one. So the way I deal with that is every once in a while I will slide the eye of my needle up to the surface of my fabric and then pull it back along my floss so that I even out the tension between the two strands that I'm working with. I also suggest using a nice tight hoop. I know a lot of people like to stitch in hand with satin floss. That's especially difficult. So it's a good idea to use a hoop or a Q-snap or something like it and put good tension on your fabric, because that makes it easier to apply that consistent tension to the floss. And then the last tip I have for that is using what I call the one-stroke method. So normally when you do a stitch, you pass your needle down through, you pull your floss through, you pass your needle back up. What I recommend doing with satin floss is what I call one stroke. So you pass the needle down through, and without pulling all the floss through, you pass your needle back up. This can take some getting used to and can slow things down a little bit, but it helps to keep that tension on that most recent stitch that you did, and helps keep the tension more consistent between the two strands so you don't get bubbly stitches. You know, I can only make videos so fast and I can't address all topics, and sometimes the way that I teach things doesn't work for certain people. If you really want to be able to get a lot of information about cross-stitching and learn about the hobby, I highly recommend joining the Caterpillar Cross-Stitch Facebook group and following the Caterpillar Cross-Stitch Instagram. Those two spaces have tens of thousands of stitchers within them who are all eager to share their information. Likewise, if you're an experienced stitcher and you want to share your love and passion for the hobby with newcomers, either of those spaces is a great place to do that. So go join the Facebook group and follow the Instagram. You won't regret it. Now, dealing with the problem of the floss unwinding from the bobbins is actually pretty easy. And all I do for that is use a rubber band. I often use tiny dental rubber bands instead, but I can't find any of those at the moment. That keeps the floss from unwinding. That's also great for metallic floss. And finally, a couple of tips that don't necessarily address specific problems, but are good things to keep in mind. Number one is that because it's made of a synthetic fiber, satin floss can melt. So if you are one of those people who washes and irons your pieces after you're done, like I do, don't put it on high. Set it to the synthetic fiber setting, or your iron may even have a rayon setting, but don't use that high or cotton setting because it might melt the rayon. And then if all of this just sounds like too much trouble to you and you don't want to have to deal with the floss, even though it is undeniably gorgeous, the number of any given satin floss corresponds to a regular cotton floss number as well. So if you're pattern calls for satin S798 like this, you can just use 798 to substitute for that. It will be the same color. It won't be quite as shiny, but the color at least will match. That covers most of the tips that I have for working with satin floss. Is there something that you do that I didn't mention? Put it in the comments down below. I do want to thank you so much for watching. My name is Ford for Caterpillar Cross Stitch. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next week.
Hi, have you heard about Love It Stitch It yet? You can design and shop the cross stitch patterns you've always wanted. Love It Stitch It is an easy to use design tool and exclusive cross stitch marketplace, giving you the freedom to create, sell and shop all in one place. You can design anything that you like, add text, upload and convert pictures and artwork. You can design the cross stitch patterns of your dream. You can download them for personal use, or you can upload them onto the marketplace, designed by cross stitchers for cross stitchers, jam-packed with some gorgeous cross stitch patterns from designers all over the world. If you're not interested in designing or selling, that's totally fine too. Just visit the marketplace and you can shop from hundreds of beautiful cross stitch patterns so you can pick your next project. Are you already a cross stitch designer? But maybe you're fed up of other marketplaces, maybe not getting the sales that you deserve, maybe not getting your patterns seen as much as you'd like, then let us help. You can easily register for free and get uploading your PDF patterns with absolutely no fees whatsoever. Let us then market your gorgeous designs that you've put all of your work into to over 185,000 dedicated cross stitchers from all over the world. We will absolutely do our best to get your patterns seen and into the right hands of people that we know will absolutely love stitching them. As a designer, you can easily list your PDF patterns for sale, no matter which software you use to design them. Our job is to make cross-stitch design accessible to all. There's nothing to upgrade, there's nothing to download. It's really easy to use and beginner friendly. We also wanted to create the marketplace to bring sellers and buyers together so that it's really easy and such an enjoyable experience to shop all of the high quality verified designs on the platform, but also to give those amazing designers a place to really showcase their creativity. So visit loveitstitchit.com today and register for free. Stitch what you love and free your creativity.